welcome back. So, I found myself thinking about, I want to say the term emotional intelligence, and not the actual definition, but kind of like what it meant to me. And to me, though, that term is it's kind of like one of those terms that you know how you want to explain it, but when you try to explain it, it's a little harder because of how in depth the word itself is, or the meaning behind the word is. So kind of how love is hard to explain in a definition. To me, emotional intelligence is kind of the same way in that sense. So in a basic sense, I was kind of talking to my grandma and was telling her people that's transitioning from being in prison into the real world is pretty much the same thing. A person that doesn't want to be in prison is going to do what they got to do their time and get out. Meaning being mentally mature enough to not cause things to make you have to stay there longer, if that makes sense. So controlling any emotional aspect that you might have that could hinder you or cause you to stay in prison longer. And it's even though if you're not in prison and you're technically, for the term of it, free to do whatever, you still have to have that same thought process of doing what you need to do in your day-to-day to not cause any extra hindrance or turmoil that will affect your standard of living. And when you say it like that, it sound good. It sound like that's easy to do. But we were also having a conversation where she was just you got to play the game. And I was trying to explain, there's some people don't think like that. Their motive isn't to try to be strategic in a way of trying to beat the opponent. It's it is what it is, or it's not what it's not, and you respect whatever the difference is. And to me, it would seem like a much better harmonious type of living if more people thought like that. So I found myself in, I want to say, challenging situations, because outwardly they might not have looked challenging, but inwardly I had to control how I felt or dealt with the situations. And some days I was fine. I was just this is what comes with where I'm at. Do what I can, do the best that I can in what I'm able to do, and anything that's not of God or not of me, just let it go. To me, that is the trying to be intelligent in an emotional aspect of unfavorable circumstances. But when the heaviness of the situations were piling on, I could feel myself not trying to control my emotions, trying. I want to say I was instead of processing the emotions, I just felt them. And while I was feeling them, I I was wondering, like, I've never sat back and thought about how I deal with these things. Like, I never took the time to actually think about how I process these emotions. I just go through the motions and live it. I've never sat down or actually outwardly thought about what I was doing internally, if that makes sense. So in one of the situations, I was really frustrated, like just angry, like internally really upset. And I thought to myself, like, one, I don't have anybody I could talk to that would understand right now. Like, I don't have somebody that I could call to explain what's going on and have them talk me through or unpack the feelings that I'm having right now. And the second thought process was, well, what would you normally do? Like, I know right now it sounds good to say, pray about it. Like, if you pray about it, God can turn this around. And granted, that was very true, because that is a literal thing. But I was processing the emotion, and I wanted it to be genuine. So in my mind, it was just like, yeah, that is the go-to. But if we're being honest in this situation, knowing that there's this thing where people are trying to analyze things, that's the cliche expected answer. That's the just do what you got to do to get out of prison answer. And it's like, right now, this is heavy. And I don't want to just say I'm going to pray about it. Like, what on top of praying is going to help me through this? And to be honest with you, it was the sincerity of that thought process that brought me back to not being in that emotion. And it was a real-time processing of the definition of emotional intelligence. Like, of course, inwardly, as a believer, like, I know that my go-to is to seek God first, because I know that He can turn the situation around. But it was me talking myself through the why behind me going that route made sense for what situation was taking place. So it's like, right now, this is a spiritual attack. So why not go to the source of what will overcome the spiritual attack that's taking place? It's like, right now, this literally is not my battle. Like, this is not an energy that the Lord Himself will want me to be in. And because it's not of God, I'm going to turn this over to God so that He can work it out in my favor for His glory. But then there was another day where, granted, that was the thought process that I could have went through to make it through that day. But instead, I silently sat in the emotion. Like, I still felt angry, and I could feel everything outwardly contributing to the inward anger that was boiling over, to be honest with you. But instead of speaking and contributing to the outwardness of it, I just silently, I don't want to say I kept it inward, because, like, I could feel myself still responding in situations with less grace than I normally would. And I had to, again, process my thoughts with myself. Like, is the other ways that I'm responding, am I masking how I feel? Am I literally walking around every day just masking these emotions and saying that I'm dealing with them or processing them in a healthy manner? Because granted, these emotions aren't showing outwardly, but for them to overflow this much when the opportunity is there to not mask it, how am I dealing with this on a day-to-day? Like, how am I dealing with this? What am I doing that is processing this or releasing this in a healthy manner? Like, I don't want to mask. I don't want to suppress what I'm feeling and calling it being emotionally intelligent. I want to deal with the root issue and actually live in peace. So there were certain situations where I was just like, you know, if I react, it's just a reflection of whatever those other people are going through and whatever they, in whatever way they cause this situation for me to want to react. And then in other forms of it, it was like, you know what? This is the reaction that maybe they need to see that it's effort being put behind not reacting the way that I could be reacting. But it's also respecting people's outlets. Like, there's a major problem with people trying to control how other people live their lives. And everybody's not the same. God didn't make us that way. But trying to force people to be who you want them to be is more of an issue than teaching morality and walking in the way that fits the way that you were designed. So when I was sitting there feeling like I was feeling other people's anger and was like, what if this is what feeling like taking on all of others' anger is like? I have to give the glory back to where it's due and understand what it must have felt like to carry everybody's sin and to die for it, knowing that you were sinless. Knowing that you literally did nothing but fulfill the purpose that you were sent on earth for. But to take on that burden of feeling everybody's sin, being beaten to death for it, hung on the cross, and pierced in the side, just so people that come behind you can live in a little bit of peace in the way that the Father designed us to be able to walk in peace. So I don't know your motive behind your emotional intelligence, but I'm grateful for the way that God designed my emotional intelligence and how he helps me process through the things that he helps me process through. Because I don't like feeling or expressing in that unmasked version of me. Because I literally have to put on the armor of Christ to make it through the situations that the outside environment tries to weigh every one of us in its own specific ways down. But in the words of Young Miami, I see y'all and I feel y'all. But that's all I got for now. Until next time.